A 17-year-old girl is dying mid-flight. She's gasping for air, her body swelling, her throat closing. She pleads for help, but the senior flight attendant sees only a hysterical, attention-seeking teen. When a doctor on board tries to intervene, the crew physically blocks her, insisting it's just a panic attack. They have no idea who they're messing with. They ignored her desperate pleas, unaware that her father was the one man with the power to destroy their entire company, the nation's health minister. This is the story of Flight GA447 and the fatal mistake that ignited a global scandal. The chaos of London Heathrow's Terminal 3 was a familiar, humming static to Maya Washington. At 17, she was already a seasoned traveler, navigating the ebb and flow of international hubs with an ease that belied her age. She was returning from a 6-month honors program in London, flying solo back to Washington, D.C. on Global Airway, Flight GA447. She pulled her rolling carry-on, a sleek, dark blue Rimowa, and adjusted the strap of her backpack, feeling the familiar, reassuring weight of her textbooks and her laptop. Tucked in a side pocket of that backpack was a small, insulated black pouch. Inside it, 2 EpiPen auto-injectors. Maya had a severe, life-threatening allergy to peanuts and tree nuts. It wasn't a lifestyle choice. It was a medical fact, one that had governed her life since she was 3. She was diligent, bordering on obsessive about it. She'd already checked the in-flight meal options online. She'd ordered the strict vegan, nut-free option, and she always carried her own snacks just in case. She settled into her seat 8B in the business class cabin. It was a graduation gift from her parents. Her father, Robert, had wanted her to be comfortable on the long haul. She texted him, "Boarding now. Seat is great. Love you." A moment later, a reply, "Love you more, superstar. So proud of you. I'll be waiting at Dulles. Call me the second you land." Maya smiled. Her dad was a busy man, Dr. Robert Washington, the United States Secretary of Health and Human Services. But he was never too busy for her. His public persona was one of calm, analytical authority, the man guiding the nation's health policy. To her, he was just dad, the man who taught her how to check food labels and who held her hand in the ER that one terrifying time in 5th grade. As passengers filed in, the cabin crew began their pre-flight dance. A junior flight attendant, a young man in his early 20s with a nervous smile named Mark Dempsey, came by. "Ms. Washington?" he asked, checking his tablet. "Can I get you a pre-departure beverage? We have champagne, orange juice, or water." "Just water, please. And I wanted to confirm, I have a severe nut allergy. I noted it on my reservation and my meal." Mark's smile tightened slightly. "Oh yes, ma'am. I see that here. We'll be very careful." He seemed unsure. A moment later, a woman with sharp, angular features and hair pulled back into a severe bun approached. Her name tag read, Brenda Sullivan, cabin purser. She was probably in her early 50s, and she moved with an air of stressed, absolute authority. She'd clearly been doing this job for 30 years and hated the last 29 of it. She overheard Mark's exchange with Maya. "Is there a problem here?" Brenda asked, her voice a low, clipped monotone that cut through the cabin noise. "No, Brenda," Mark said quickly. "This passenger was just informing us of a nut allergy." Brenda's eyes, a pale, cold blue, scanned Maya. She took in the designer backpack, the youth, the business class seat, the braids neatly tied back. Her expression soured, a subtle, almost imperceptible sneer. "We are aware," Brenda said, directing the comment at Maya. "We cannot, however, guarantee a nut-free environment. The air is recycled, and we do serve warmed nuts in first and business class. It's our signature service." "I understand that," Maya said politely, practiced in this speech. "I'm not asking you to change the service for the whole plane. I just need to ensure my specific meal is safe and that there's no cross-contamination on the surfaces." Brenda let out a sigh that was pure theater. "Of course, dear. We'll wipe it down." She turned to Mark. "Get her a sanitary wipe. She can do it herself if she's that concerned." Maya recoiled, stung by the dismissiveness. Okay." Brenda had already moved on, snapping at another passenger about a carry-on bag. Mark, blushing, hurried to the galley and returned with a small sealed towelette, the kind you get with a barbecue rib. "I'm sorry," he whispered. It's been a long day." It's fine, Maya lied, taking the wipe and meticulously cleaning her tray table, her armrests, and the video screen. She felt the familiar sting of humiliation. To her, it was a life-or-death precaution. To people like Brenda, it was an obnoxious inconvenience. A few rows back, in seat 12D, Dr. Sarah Jenkins, a cardiologist from Johns Hopkins, was settling in. She noticed the exchange, clocked the purser's aggressive rudeness, and the young girl's quiet dignity. She frowned, made a mental note of it, and returned to her medical journal. The Boeing 777 pushed back from the gate, taxied, and then roared into the sky, banking west over the Atlantic. The cabin lights dimmed, and the 8-hour journey began. For the first 2 hours, everything was normal. Maya watched a movie, texted her friends on the spotty in-flight Wi-Fi, and felt the knot of anxiety from the encounter with Brenda slowly loosen. Then the meal service began. Mark Dempsey pushed the cart down the aisle, his hands visibly shaking. Brenda was watching him from the galley, her arms crossed. "Your special meal, Ms. Washington," he said, placing the tray before her. It was covered in foil. "The, vegan pasta." "Thank you, Mark. Can you just confirm it was prepared nut-free?" Yes, it's listed right here. SFML, nut-free." "You're all set." Maya peeled back the foil. It was a simple penne with a red sauce and some roasted vegetables. It looked safe. It looked bland. She took a small, cautious bite. She tasted tomato, oregano, and something else. A faint, bitter, oily taste that wasn't olive oil. It was pesto, but the manifest said no nuts. Maybe it was basil pesto made with sunflower seeds. She took a second, larger bite. The reaction was not immediate, but it was definitive. It started as a tingle on her tongue, then a metallic taste, then an itch, deep in her throat, a place she couldn't scratch. Her heart kicked, a sudden thump, thump, thump of pure adrenaline. Oh no. She pressed the call button, her hands shaking. Itch, itch, itch. It was spreading, up her neck, behind her ears. She could feel the pinprick heat of hives. Mark arrived, his face pale. "Yes, Ms. Washington." "Mark," she said, her voice already sounding thick. I think I'm having a reaction. My throat. It's itching. I need my bag, my EpiPen. It's in the overhead." Mark's eyes went wide. He immediately reached up to unlatch the bin above her seat. "What are you doing?" Brenda's voice was like ice. She had materialized instantly. "She's having an allergic reaction, Brenda. Her EpiPen is in her bag." "Stop," Brenda commanded. She put a hand on Mark's arm, shoving him aside. She turned her cold gaze on Maya. Maya was breathing faster now. A wheeze, like a tiny whistle, had started in her chest. "Please," she rasped, "I need my bag." Brenda looked at the half-eaten meal. "You're having a panic attack, sweetie. Just look at you. You've worked yourself up over this. Just take a deep breath." "No," Maya cried, her voice cracking. "It's not. I can't breathe." The words were harder to get out. Her throat felt like it was filling with cotton. "This is anaphylaxis," Maya gasped, clawing at her neck, where red, angry welts were now visibly rising. "Get my bag." "Do not raise your voice at me," Brenda snapped. "You are disrupting the other passengers. Mark, get her a glass of water and perhaps a paper bag to breathe into." At that moment, Dr. Sarah Jenkins in 12D, who had been watching the scene unfold with growing horror, unbuckled her seatbelt. She was at their row in an instant. "I am a doctor," she said, her voice low and powerful. "My name is Dr. Sarah Jenkins. I'm a cardiologist at Johns Hopkins. This girl is in anaphylactic shock. She is not having a panic attack. She is suffocating. Get her EpiPen now, or she will be dead in 5 minutes." Brenda turned to Dr. Jenkins, her face a mask of insulted authority. "Ma'am, I am the purser on this flight, and I am trained to handle medical situations. This is an anxiety attack. Please return to your seat, or I will have the captain informed that you are interfering with the crew." "Interfering?" Sarah was aghast. "You're wrong. Look at her. She has urticaria, she's wheezing, and she's developing stridor. She needs epinephrine immediately." "Return to your seat," Brenda ordered. Maya was fading. Her vision was tunneling. The cabin lights seemed to swim. She could hear the women arguing above her, as if from a great distance. She fumbled for her phone, her fingers numb and swollen. She managed to open the text thread with her dad. Her fingers barely worked. Allergic reaction. Crew won't help. Can't breathe. Brenda saw the phone. And put that away. You're just making it worse. She tried to snatch it. Maya held on, adding one more text, a jumble of letters. GA447 love you. She pressed send. The delivered receipt appeared. I am not returning to my seat, Dr. Jenkins roared, finally losing her professional cool. You are killing this child, Mark, she yelled at the terrified junior attendant. Which bag is hers? That one, Mark pointed, tears in his eyes. The blue Rimowa. Dr. Jenkins didn't hesitate. She shoved past Brenda, who was so shocked at the physical defiance that she stumbled back. Jenkins flipped the latch, grabbed the backpack from inside the suitcase, tore open the side pocket, and pulled out the black insulated pouch. Brenda, recovering, grabbed her arm. I will have you arrested for assault and for interfering with a flight crew. Shut up and call the cockpit, Sarah screamed. Tell them to get the onboard medical kit now. Get the oxygen. Get the AED. Her heart is going to stop. She unzipped the pouch, pulled out an EpiPen, and ripped off the blue safety cap. Maya was slumped in her seat, her skin turning a dusky gray. Her breath was a high-pitched, desperate squeal. Dr. Jenkins yelled in her face, Maya, I'm giving you the injection. She slammed the auto-injector into Maya's thigh, holding it firmly for 3 seconds. Click. Hiss. Brenda watched, her face white with fury. You had no right. I have every right, Dr. Jenkins said, pulling out the second pen, readying it in case the first wasn't enough. Now get the damn oxygen, or her death is on your hands. The fasten seatbelt sign pinged on, and the captain's voice came over the intercom, sharp and urgent. This is the captain speaking. Due to a severe medical emergency, we are diverting. Cabin crew, prepare for an immediate descent. We are diverting to Shannon, Ireland. Brenda Sullivan's world, though she didn't know it yet, had just ended. The Boeing 777 began a steep, rapid descent through the darkness over the North Atlantic. The sudden drop and the alarm in the captain's voice sent a ripple of panic through the cabin. Passengers were murmuring, some praying. In row 8, Dr. Sarah Jenkins was in command. Mark Dempsey, having broken from Brenda's paralysis, had retrieved the large red onboard medical kit and an oxygen tank. She's not responding enough, Sarah said, her voice tight. Maya's breathing was still dangerously shallow, though the high-pitched stridor had lessened slightly. The epinephrine was fighting, but the reaction had been too severe, the delay too long. The swelling is still compromising her airway. I need to give her the second dose. The manual says 1 dose, Brenda whispered, her face ashen. She was quoting procedure from a book she had abandoned in favor of her own fatal bias. The manual is for you, Sarah snapped, not looking up. I'm a physician. She's in profound shock. She administered the second EpiPen into Maya's other thigh. Mark, get that oxygen mask on her. Full flow. And I need a blood pressure cuff now. Together, she and Mark worked, a frantic, focused team. Brenda Sullivan stood uselessly in the aisle, a ghost at her own crime scene. Passengers in the surrounding rows stared, their faces a mix of fear and disgust. Several were openly filming her with their phones. In the cockpit, Captain David Harrison was on the satellite phone with air traffic control at the Shannon Area Control Center. Shannon, this is Global 447. We are pan. We have a severe medical emergency on board. A 17-year-old female, anaphylactic shock, unresponsive. We require an immediate diversion to Shannon, requesting priority landing and paramedics on the tarmac. Our ETA is 40 minutes. Global 447, Roger, you're pan, the Irish controller's calm voice replied. You are cleared direct to SNN. Descend and maintain flight level 200. Be advised, we will have emergency services standing by. The plane shuddered as it cut through a cloud layer. Captain Harrison turned to his first officer. What in God's name happened back there? Brenda said it was a panic attack. The other flight attendant, Dempsey, just called, the first officer said, his eyes on his instruments. He said, and I quote, Brenda blocked a doctor from giving her an EpiPen. He's hysterical. Said the girl is bad. Harrison swore, a low, vicious sound. Get back to Shannon. Tell them to have a full critical care team, not just an ambulance, a team. Back in the cabin, Maya's phone dropped on the floor, lit up. A new text. Who is this? This is Dr. Washington. Is Maya okay? Then a call. The screen read, Dad. Dr. Jenkins saw it, but she was too busy trying to get a pulse oximeter on Maya's finger. The phone rang and rang, unanswered. 35,000 feet below, in a secure operations center in Washington, D.C., Secretary Robert Washington was not at home. He had been in a late-night briefing on a new influenza strain when his phone vibrated. He'd seen the first text from Maya, and his blood had run cold. He'd seen the second jumbled text and the GA-447, and he had sprung into action. He was not just a politician. He was a physician by training, and he was one of the most powerful men in the country. He made 2 calls. The first was to the FAA's Emergency Operations Center. The second was to the White House Situation Room, which had a direct line to the U.S. Ambassador in Ireland and the U.S. Air Force Base in Ramstein, Germany. I have a U.S. citizen, my daughter, in anaphylactic shock on Global 447, diverting to Shannon, he'd said, his voice terrifyingly calm. The crew is non-compliant. I am declaring this a medical and a security situation. I want a stat flight from Ramstein to meet that plane. I want the best critical care air transport team in Europe. And I want a secure line to that cockpit. Now. Back on Flight 447, Captain Harrison's console lit up with an incoming call on the satellite link. This wasn't from air traffic control. This was a high-priority government channel. He picked it up. This is Captain Harrison. Captain, a new American voice said, clipped in military. This is NORAD, patching you through to an urgent secure channel. Stand by. There was a click, and then a voice that was pure, cold, compressed rage. This is Dr. Robert Washington, the United States Secretary of Health and Human Services. My daughter, Maya Washington, is in seat 8B. I understand she is unresponsive. Is that correct? Captain Harrison felt the blood drain from his face. He looked at his first officer, who had gone sheet white. Secretary, Health and Human Services. Mr. Secretary, yes, sir. We have a doctor on board attending to her. We are 20 minutes from Shannon. Here is what is going to happen, Captain, Dr. Washington said, his voice leaving no room for argument. You will land that plane. You will taxi to a private hangar, not the main gate. You will be met on the tarmac by a U.S. Air Force C-17 carrying a critical care team. My daughter's care is being transferred to the U.S. government effective immediately. You will instruct your crew to not touch her and to not interfere with the U.S. medical team. Am I understood? Yes, sir, understood. One more thing, Captain. Who is the purser on this flight? Harrison hesitated. Brenda Sullivan, sir. Captain Harrison, the secretary said, and the temperature in the cockpit seemed to drop 10 degrees. You tell Ms. Sullivan that if my daughter dies, I will personally spend the rest of my life ensuring she is prosecuted for manslaughter. Land the plane. The line clicked dead. Captain Harrison sat in stunned silence for a beat. Then he hit the intercom for the crew line. Brenda, get up here, now. Brenda Sullivan walked the length of the plane to the cockpit, her legs unsteady. Passengers tracked her with cold, hateful stares. The woman in 9C who had been filming pointed her phone directly at Brenda's face. She entered the cockpit, and Captain Harrison didn't even turn around. Who is she, Brenda? He asked, his voice a low growl. What? The passenger? I don't know, Captain. A teenager, the doctor. Her name is Maya Washington, Harrison cut her off. Her father is Robert Washington. Do you know who that is? Brenda's mind was blank. A politician. He's the U.S. Secretary of Health, the first officer said, finally turning to look at her. His eyes were filled with contempt. He's a cabinet member, and he just called this cockpit on a secure military channel. There is a U.S. Air Force warplane on its way to meet us. The blood left Brenda's face. Not a gradual draining. It was as if a plug had been pulled. She grabbed the back of the jump seat to steady herself. What? How could he? He knows everything, Brenda, Harrison said. He knows you called it a panic attack. He knows you blocked the doctor. He knows you refused her EpiPen. I was following procedure, she stammered, the lie sounding pathetic even to her own ears. You were not, Harrison roared, finally swiveling his chair to face her. You were playing God, and you messed with the daughter of one of the most powerful men in the world. Now get back there. Do not go near that passenger. Do not speak to the doctor. Do not speak to anyone. When we land, a U.S. Air Force team is boarding this plane. You will do exactly as they say. You are grounded, effective immediately. Brenda stumbled back into the cabin, the short walk to the galley feeling like miles. She sat on her crew seat, her mind a screaming void. Secretary, Air Force, grounded. The 777's wheels hit the tarmac at Shannon Airport with a jarring thud. The plane didn't taxi to the terminal. As promised, it was guided by follow-me trucks to a remote, starkly lit private aviation hangar. As the engines spooled down, the cabin was silent, save for the hiss of the oxygen tank and Dr. Jenkins's low, steady voice. Stay with me, Maya. Vitals are thready, but she's holding. Stay with me. The thunk of the main cabin door being unlatched echoed through the plane. Brenda stood up, driven by some 30-year-old instinct, to greet the arrivals. The door opened. It was not the Irish paramedics. 4 men in U.S. Air Force flight suits, emblazoned with medical patches, stormed the plane. They were a critical care air transport team, CCAT, the best of the best, flown in from Ramstein at supersonic speed. Clear the aisle, the team leader, a major, shouted. They moved with terrifying precision, carrying Pelican cases and monitors. Behind them, a man in a dark suit, his face a mask of sculpted fury, stepped onto the plane. He was tall, athletic, and his eyes were burning. He was Dr. Robert Washington. He hadn't waited in D.C. He had been on that C-17 pacing the cargo bay like a caged lion for the entire 90-minute flight. He strode past the crew, past the stunned passengers, his eyes locked on the girl in seat 8B. Maya, he breathed. He knelt by her seat, touching her face. Daddy's here. Daddy's here. He turned to Dr. Sarah Jenkins. I'm Robert Washington. I'm her father. What's her status? Dr. Washington, Sarah said, relief flooding her. 2 doses of epi, 0.3 milliliter each. She's on 15 liters O2 non-rebreather. BP is 80/50, pulse 130. She's in profound shock, but she's holding. There was a delay, a long delay. I know, Robert said, his voice shaking with a rage so deep it was almost silent. The CCAT team was already hooking Maya up to their portable monitor, establishing a new IV. We're intubating, the Air Force major said. Airway is too compromised. Let's move. Gurney, now. As they efficiently packaged Maya onto a specialized transport gurney, Robert Washington stood up. He turned and looked down the aisle. His eyes found Brenda Sullivan, who was frozen by the galley, trying to look invisible. He walked slowly toward her. Every passenger watched. Every phone was recording. He stopped a foot from her. He didn't raise his voice. He spoke in a low, clear, devastating tone. What is your name? Be Brenda Sullivan, sir. The purser. Brenda Sullivan, he repeated as if memorizing it. He looked at her name tag. Global Airway. You called my daughter a liar. You called her hysterical. You denied her medicine while she was suffocating. Sir, I thought it was a panic attack. I didn't know. You didn't know what? He hissed. That she was my daughter? Would that have mattered? Would you have believed her then? Or did you just not believe her because she was a young black girl who you thought you could bully? Brenda's face crumpled. No, I'm not. You are, he said simply. Dr. Jenkins, he called out, thank you for saving my daughter's life. You will be compensated for your actions, and you will be my guest at the White House. He turned back to Brenda. I will not deal with you now. My daughter is my priority. He leaned in, his voice a whisper that everyone in the first 10 rows heard. But I promise you, I will dismantle your life. I will dismantle the company that trained you. This will be the last day you ever work. This will be the last day you walk free for a very long time. You have my word. He turned, followed the gurney carrying his daughter, and disappeared into the night, leaving a ruined, silent airplane in his wake. The moment Robert Washington and the CCAT team cleared the aircraft, the atmosphere on Flight GA-4477 curdled. The immediate adrenaline-fueled crisis was over, but the fallout was just beginning. An Irish official, a stern-looking man from the An Garda Síochána, the Irish National Police, boarded, followed by a pale, frantic-looking man in a Global Airway corporate suit. Declan Hayes, the airline's Shannon station manager, who had been woken up and told there was an incident. He had arrived expecting a standard diversion. He was now looking at a potential international catastrophe. "Ladies and gentlemen," the Garda officer announced, "this aircraft is now a scene. We will be deplaning you shortly. We will require statements from everyone in the business class cabin, particularly rows 7 through 13. Please remain in your seats." Declan Hayes rushed to the galley, his eyes wild. "Brenda! Mark! What happened? The manifest just says, passenger illness." Mark Dempsey, who had been sobbing quietly on his jump seat, looked up, his face streaked with tears. She wouldn't let us help. Brenda stopped us. She stopped the doctor. She said the girl was faking." "Faking?" Declan looked at Brenda. "Brenda? Is that true?" Brenda Sullivan was in a state of catatonic shock. She was staring at the empty seat, 8B, where the oxygen mask and the wrappers from the EpiPens lay discarded. "The Secretary of Health," she muttered. He said he would dismantle my life." "Brenda!" Declan shook her arm. "Snap out of it. The Garda are here. The FAA is already on the line with Dublin. The CEO, James Pratt, is on a conference call from Chicago. What did you do?" "I was following procedure," she said again, the word now meaningless. "That's a lie," a passenger shouted from 9C. "She was on a power trip. She racially profiled that girl. We all saw it. I have it on video. And I'm a witness," another passenger yelled. "She physically assaulted the doctor who tried to help." Declan Hayes stumbled back, realizing the magnitude of what had occurred. This wasn't a mistake. It was a willful, negligent act with dozens of witnesses. The Garda officer walked over. "Miss Sullivan, Mr. Dempsey, you'll need to come with me. You'll be interviewed separately." Mark nodded, seeming almost relieved. But as the officer put a hand on Brenda's arm, she finally broke. "No!" she shrieked, batting his hand away. "You can't arrest me. I'm the purser. I have 30 years with this airline. 30 years! It was a mistake. I didn't know." "Ma'am, you are not under arrest," the officer said firmly. "But you are being detained for questioning. Your flight credentials are being suspended. Please come with me." The passengers watched in dead silence as Brenda Sullivan, the woman who held the power of life and death just an hour before, was escorted off the plane, not as a crew member, but as a person of interest. The passengers were bused to a private terminal, where a small army of airline representatives, airport officials, and Irish police waited. Dr. Sarah Jenkins was treated like a hero and a star witness. She gave a precise, damning 2-hour statement, detailing every medical term Brenda had ignored, every second of delay, and the purser's exact hostile words. Other passengers corroborated her story. The videos were downloaded. The airline, in full-blown panic, seized the crew's tablets and the flight's black box, the cockpit and cabin voice recorders. Meanwhile, Maya Washington was stabilized at University Hospital Limerick before being transferred back to the C-17, which took off immediately for Walter Reed National Military Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland. The initial diagnosis was devastating. Anaphylaxis had led to cardiac arrest. While Dr. Jenkins had saved her life, the prolonged lack of oxygen, those precious minutes Brenda had wasted with her accusations, had caused a severe hypoxic brain injury. Maya was alive, but she was not the same. Back in Shannon, the investigation was swift and brutal. Mark Dempsey, in a room with 2 airline lawyers and an Irish investigator, broke down completely. He confessed everything. "I knew she was wrong," he wept. "I saw the girl's face. I knew, but Brenda, she's terrifying. She writes our reviews. She can have us fired. I was scared. I did nothing. God, I did nothing." His testimony, combined with the videos and Dr. Jenkins's statement, sealed Brenda's fate. The airline's lawyers from the high-powered firm Covington & Burling advised CEO James Pratt to cut her loose immediately. Brenda Sullivan was fired via sterile email to her locked-out corporate account before she had even finished her 12-hour interrogation. Global Airway issued a public statement. "We are appalled by the actions of a rogue crew member on Flight 447. This individual's actions are in direct violation of our policies and training. She has been terminated, and we are cooperating fully with authorities." They were trying to make her a scapegoat to save the airline. They had no idea what Dr. Robert Washington meant by dismantle. The story did not just leak, it erupted. Within hours of Flight 447's unscheduled landing in Shannon, the world was on fire. The passenger videos, sharp and damning, went viral with a ferocity that shook Global Airway to its foundations. Hashtags like Washijir Flight 447, Chiash Believe Maya, and the globally trending Jashirwa Purser Brenda became symbols of corporate evil and racial bias. News networks, CNN, the BBC, Fox, and MSNBC, preempted their scheduled programming. This was not just an airline incident, it was a geopolitical event involving a U.S. cabinet secretary's child. News anchors with grim faces played the cell phone footage. The red welts on Maya's neck, the cold, dismissive sneer on Brenda Sullivan's face, and the heroic, desperate interventions of Dr. Sarah Jenkins. Then came the leaks. The audio from the cabin voice recorder found its way to the Washington Post. Now, the world didn't just see the crime, they heard it with chilling clarity. They heard Maya's first polite request. They heard the faint, high-pitched wheeze in her voice as she begged for her bag. And they heard Brenda's voice dripping with contempt. "You are disrupting the other passengers. Return to your seat." That audio, played over a silent, staring America, was the death knell for Brenda Sullivan and her employer. The hard karma for Brenda was not a single event. It was a systematic, societal, and legal annihilation of her life. First, the legal charges. The Department of Justice, under direct orders from the Attorney General, unsealed a federal indictment. Because the incident occurred on a U.S. carrier in international airspace, it was a federal case. Brenda Sullivan was extradited from Ireland, where she had been detained. She was flown back to America, landing at the very airport she was meant to have triumphantly finished her shift. Washington Dulles. But she did not walk through the terminal. She was escorted in handcuffs, a jacket over her head, as a ravenous horde of paparazzi and news crews filmed her perp walk. The charges were read aloud: assault on Dr. Sarah Jenkins, felony reckless endangerment, and the career-ending charge, interference with a flight crew, a crime treated with the same severity as assaulting a pilot, as her actions had directly led to the emergency diversion of the aircraft. Her public shaming was absolute. She was no longer a person, she was a meme, a villain. The face of airline Karen escalated to a lethal degree. Her home address in suburban Chicago was leaked. News vans parked on her street for weeks. Protesters, many of them parents of children with severe allergies, held signs on her lawn. Her husband, Jeff, a quiet insurance salesman, watched his own life crumble. His clients, disgusted by association, canceled their policies. His name was Mud. One evening, after staring at a news report showing his wife's snarling face, he packed a bag. "I can't, Brenda," he'd said to her in the sterile interview room of the Federal Detention Center. "I don't know who you are. The woman I married didn't do that." He filed for divorce the next day. Her 30-year airline union, after a brief review of the overwhelming evidence, publicly dropped her as a member, calling her actions indefensible and a betrayal of every principle of cabin safety. Her trial was a media circus. The prosecution's case was simple and devastating. Dr. Sarah Jenkins's testimony was a clinical, cold scalpel, dismantling the panic attack defense with brutal medical precision. But the star witness was the black box. The prosecutor played the cabin voice recorder for the jury. The courtroom was silent, hearing only the sound of a 17-year-old girl suffocating, punctuated by the purser's cold, sharp commands. Brenda, her face a puffy, ruined mask, could not listen. She put her hands over her ears. The jury watched her do it. The verdict came back in under an hour. Guilty on all counts. The judge in his sentencing was merciless. "You were given a position of absolute trust, Mrs. Sullivan. You were the first responder in the sky, And in the moment a child's life was in your hands, you chose ego, you chose power, you chose, perhaps, to see a type of person instead of a person in need. You have voided a lifetime of service with one act of catastrophic cruelty. She was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. Mark Dempsey, the junior attendant, fared better, but his life was also ruined. He testified against Brenda, a broken, weeping man on the stand, admitting his own cowardice. He pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of negligence. He was fired, blacklisted from the industry, and received 2 years of probation. He ended up working in a sorting facility for an online retailer in the dead of night, haunted by the sound of Maya's wheezing, forever flinching at the sound of a plane flying overhead. But Robert Washington was not done. His promise was to dismantle the company. The civil lawsuit against Global Airway was the largest in aviation history. Dr. Washington, acting as a private citizen, hired the most feared corporate law firm in the world, Wachtell, Lipton, Rosen and Katz. The firm companies hired to conduct hostile takeovers. Their strategy was not to win a settlement, it was to conduct a corporate evisceration. The discovery process was a bloodbath. They found over 200 prior complaints filed against Brenda Sullivan for rudeness, discrimination, and aggressive behavior, all of which had been dismissed by a rubber-stamp HR department. They found a 2019 complaint from a diabetic passenger she'd refused to allow to check his blood sugar. They found a 2021 complaint from a Muslim family she'd accused of loitering near the galley. They proved a pattern of negligence. Then they went after the training. The airline's medical training was a 45-minute online video, which they proved most attendants clicked through in under 10 minutes. The CEO, James Pratt, was subpoenaed to testify before a joint session of the House Transportation Committee and the Senate Commerce Committee. It was broadcast on C-SPAN, but it had the ratings of a Super Bowl. Pratt, sweating under the lights, was humiliated. A furious senator held up the printout of the 45-minute training. "Mr. Pratt, my daughter's babysitter has more first aid training. You armed this woman with a manual and an ego and called it safety." The stock ticker for Global Airway was shown on a split screen, plunging with every word. Global Airway's stock plummeted by 60%. They were in default on their loans. They were facing bankruptcy. To settle the civil suit and avoid criminal corporate charges, they were forced into a corner. The settlement was rumored to be over $150 million, all of which was immediately placed into a new charitable foundation, the Maya Washington Foundation for Medical Equity and Bias Training. But the money was the least of it. The FAI, under direct pressure from the Department of Transportation and HHIA, forced Global Airway into a consent decree. They had to ground their entire global fleet of 10,000 flight attendants for a mandatory one-week in-person retraining program, co-designed by Dr. Sarah Jenkins and a team from HHS. The cost was nearly $1 billion. CEO James Pratt was fired. The entire executive board was forced to resign. The airline, to finance the settlement and the retraining, was forced to sell its most valuable landing slots at Heathrow and JFK. It was crippled, a hollowed-out shell of its former self, forever stained by the events of Flight 447. 1 year later, the air at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center was crisp, the sky a sharp, unforgiving October blue. A crowd of hundreds was gathered on a newly paved terrace outside a gleaming glass and steel structure, the Maya Washington Wing for Advanced Neurological Rehabilitation. The audience was a sea of contrasts. In the front rows sat cabinet secretaries, decorated generals, and gray-faced senators. Beside them sat the new executive board of Global Airway, led by their new CEO, Penelope Hayes, a woman brought in specifically to navigate the company's public penance. Her face was a mask of somber humility. In the front row, seated with an honor she had not sought, was Dr. Sarah Jenkins, who was now a reluctant national icon for patient advocacy. And behind them, a phalanx of cameras, broadcast trucks, and journalists, all silent, all waiting for one person. The sound that cut the silence was not applause, but the rhythmic tap-click of a quad cane on the stone patio. Robert Washington, his hair now more salt than pepper, walked beside his daughter, his hand hovering near her back, not touching, but ready. Maya Washington, now 18, made her way to the podium. This was the first time the public had seen her walk since the incident. The journey of those 30 feet was a testament to a year of grueling, agonizing, repetitive work. Her left leg dragged slightly. Her left arm was held in a customized brace against her torso, her hand permanently curled. The vibrant, athletic honors student who had boarded Flight 447 was gone, replaced by this fierce, fragile woman who moved with the deliberate, painful precision of the permanently injured. The hypoxic brain injury, the direct result of Brenda Sullivan's calculated delay, had stolen her effortless mobility. But it had forged her in iron. She reached the podium and gripped it with her right hand. She took a breath, stabilizing herself. The only sound was the whir click of 1,000 cameras. 1 year ago, she began, her voice different. The injury had affected her speech, leaving it slightly slurred, but it also imbued her words with a weight and a deliberate cadence that commanded attention. 1 year ago, I was a girl on a plane, excited to come home. I had my whole life planned out. I knew everything. She paused, looking out at the crowd, her eyes finding Dr. Jenkins. That girl died on Flight 447. She died when a woman in a uniform looked at me while I was suffocating, and told me I was hysterical. A shudder went through the crowd. The allergy was not the worst part, Maya continued, her voice gaining strength. I knew how to handle the allergy. The worst part, the part that broke me, was being invisible. I told the truth. I said, I am dying, and my truth was not believed. She leaned into the microphone, her eyes burning. I was not a passenger in need. I was not a person in distress. To her, I was an inconvenience, a problem, a young black girl who was making a scene. And so she let me die. In the audience, Penelope Hayes, the new CEO, closed her eyes, accepting the verbal blow. I was lucky, Maya said, the words hanging in the air. I was lucky that Dr. Sarah Jenkins was there, a hero who risked arrest to save me. I was lucky that my father is who he is. He could scramble a C-17 from Ramstein. He could get me here. He could get me the best care in the world. She looked away from the cameras toward the new building. But as I was in that hospital, learning to use my hand again, learning to talk again, I could only think of the others, the people who don't have a Dr. Jenkins, the people who don't have a father in the White House. How many people die quietly? How many are told it's just anxiety? How many are dismissed because they are not the right kind of patient to be believed? That, she said, her voice hard as the stone beneath her, is what the Maya Washington Foundation is for, and that is why we are here. She gestured with her good hand. Today, with the settlement from Global Airway, we are launching the Maya Protocol. It is not just a new set of rules. It is a new philosophy. It is a mandate of belief. From now on, when a passenger says they cannot breathe, you believe them. When a passenger says they need medicine, you get the medicine. You never let ego or bias get in the way of a human life. This protocol will be my life's work. She stepped back, unsteady but triumphant. The silence broke. It was not polite applause. It was a standing, roaring ovation. Robert Washington stepped to the podium, his face a mask of pride and iron-willed control. He kissed his daughter's head. My daughter is a warrior, he said, his voice thick with an emotion he rarely showed in public. She survived a medical crisis, and she survived an act of profound, inexcusable negligence. He looked directly at Dr. Jenkins. This wing and this protocol would not be possible without the heroism of one person who did believe. Dr. Sarah Jenkins, on behalf of my family and this nation, thank you for not returning to your seat. He then turned his gaze to the press. Today, we turn that pain into purpose. The Maya Protocol is not an option. It is not a suggestion. As of this morning, it is embedded in the FAA Reauthorization Act. It is now and will be federal law. Any airline that wishes to fly in United States airspace will adopt it, live by it, and be audited on it. We have also, with bipartisan support, passed the Airborne Good Samaritan Act, which will give federal protection to any licensed medical professional who intervenes in a medical emergency in the air. Their right to act will never be questioned by a flight attendant again. His eyes found Penelope Hayes. Global Airway, he said, his voice dropping. You have paid a great price. You have cleaned house. You have funded this new beginning. My daughter's permanent injury has bought your industry a second chance. Do not waste it. Do not ever let this happen again. He stepped back, put his arm around Maya, and together they watched as a curtain dropped, revealing the new name etched in granite. Miles away in the gray-green common room of FCI Alderson, a low-security federal prison in West Virginia, a television on the wall was playing a recap of the event. Brenda Sullivan, inmate, Chior 791083, sat on a plastic chair, a half-eaten tray of food on her lap. She was 20 pounds lighter, her hair lank and streaked with gray. Her divorce was finalized. Her house was sold to pay her legal bills. Her friends were gone. She was, in every meaningful way, a ghost. She watched the girl with the cane. She heard her name, Maya Washington, spoken like a saint's. She saw the new elegant CEO of her airline, the airline she gave 30 years to, standing there in disgrace. She heard the words Maya Protocol and felt a cold, empty sickness. She had not just been defeated, she had been erased, replaced by a protocol designed to prevent her. A guard tapped on the wall. Sullivan, TV time's over. You're on cleaning duty. Brenda stood up, dumped her tray, and picked up a mop. She was irrelevant. The world had moved on, not just without her, but because of her. She began to mop the floor, a forgotten footnote in the story of the woman she had tried to silence. Back at Walter Reed, the crowds were thinning. Maya sat in a quiet alcove, her father beside her. The sun was setting, casting long shadows. He reached over and took her right hand. You were amazing, superstar, he said quietly. Maya stared at the new wing, its lights just beginning to glow. It's not over, she said, her voice no longer slurred, but quiet and hard as steel. It's just beginning. He squeezed her hand. He didn't need to respond. He knew. The girl he had to save was gone. In her place sat a woman who was now saving everyone else. In the end, Brenda Sullivan's name became a footnote, a symbol of how catastrophic pride and prejudice can be at 35,000 feet. The airline, Global Airway, paid a price it never thought possible, and the Maya Washington Protocol has already saved lives, changing flight safety forever. But it came at a cost that Maya herself will bear for the rest of her life. Her recovery is ongoing, a daily battle against the damage caused by a few minutes of willful ignorance. This story is a brutal reminder that bias can be lethal and that accountability, when it finally comes, can be swift and devastating. What do you think? Was the karma served, or should more have been done to the airline itself? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, and make sure you subscribe for more true life dramas that expose the truth.